Welcome back to Season 2, Episode 5 of Echo Ekoji. I'm Andrea Chapman here with Joe Gochi, and our mission is to shed light on the lay voice. Throughout 2024, we'll be bringing you regular programming. Echo Ekoji originates from the serene Ekoji Buddhist Temple in Fairfax Station, Virginia. Join us for our in-person and streaming Sunday services, 11 a.m. Eastern, and on Wednesdays at 7 p.m. Eastern, we host our Dharma Breeze sessions led by Reverend Kurt Rye via Zoom. Ekoji also offers seminars, book and movie discussions, meditation sessions, and don't miss our annual Obon Summer Festival. Visit ekoji.org for more details.
Thank you, Andrea. Ekoji is part of Buddhist Churches of America, a network of 60 Jodo Shinshu temples across the United States. We embrace the teachings of Amida Buddha and the three Pure Land Sutras as interpreted by Shinran Shonin, a Japanese Pure Land Buddhist who lived from 1173 to 1263. We show our gratitude and take refuge in Amida Buddha by saying the Nembutsu, Namo Amida Butsu. Our aim is to spread the wisdom and compassion of Amida Buddha, striving for spiritual fulfillment and a society of inclusivity. Andrea, it's time to introduce our next guest for 2024.
Thank you, Joe. Joining us today is Dr. Ann Stegner, a valued member of the Ekoji Sangha. Ann, please take a moment to introduce yourself and share your whereabouts with our audience.
Hi, everyone. My name's Dr. Ann Stegner. I am in Springfield, Virginia. I live about 10 minutes from the Ekoji Buddhist Temple, and I teach world religions classes at Nova Annandale campus. That's our local community college here. So I'm happy to be with you today.
Very good, Ann. It's a pleasure to talk with you and to meet you finally. How did your upbringing shape your initial views on religion, and how have they evolved over time?
So I grew up in a small liberal Protestant church, and that my mother still belongs to this day. It's here in this area. And I think there were a couple things, important things I learned in that community that really stuck with me. First of all, it was a very small faith community, pretty small. So it was kind of like a large extended family. Everybody knew each other, everybody supported each other. And it was such an important source of support for our family over the years, especially when we were having tough times. Like my mother had breast cancer when my brother and I were in our early teens, and the community really sort of rallied around us and supported us through that. And, you know, to this day, it's a really important source of support for my mother. So I think that gave me a model of what a religious community can be and what in my mind it really should be, you know. So I think that's one of the reasons why I loved Ekoji so much right from the start, is because I really felt that sort of family, extended family atmosphere at the temple. Also, the church that I grew up in, there was room for questioning and doubt. No one said, you have to believe this, you have to feel a certain way or act a certain way. And there was space for having questions about matters of faith and wanting to explore those questions in more detail. So that's remained really important for me throughout my life, even as my beliefs have changed a lot and I've gone through different traditions, but that idea of being able to question and really think through beliefs has always been important to me.
That's beautiful, and there certainly are a lot of parallels. So what inspired you to pursue a career in teaching religious studies?
Well, I took my first religious studies class my second semester of college. I went to UVA for undergrad, and I fell in love with it immediately. I mean, it was just love at first sight. It really was. I find religious studies just endlessly fascinating. To me, studying religion is really studying people. It's sort of studying what's most important to people in their lives, what makes people tick, why people make the choices that they do, why they spend their money or time the way they do, how they vote, how they construct their identity, how they think about themselves and their place in this world. So to me, it's just endlessly fascinating, and it's such an open field. I can study religions for the rest of my life, and there's no way to learn everything. I'll always be encountering new traditions, new beliefs and ideas, new practices. I learn something new every day, including from my students. They teach me new things as well. So I love that about it. And I'm also very, very passionate about religious studies education. I think it's really a terrible shame that there is so little religious studies education in K through 12 in this country. I certainly understand concerns about mixing religion and the secular, religion in public schools. I can understand why there's a concern there, but there's a really big difference between teaching religion and teaching about religion with the aim of understanding it better. And I think a lot of times people they don't make that distinction. They just think, well, we need to keep religion out of schools. But the result of that is just avoiding the topic altogether. I think a lot of K through 12 teachers, even who might want to introduce, a religious studies education or religious appreciation into their classrooms, I think they're nervous about parent complaints or other pushback. So they just tend to give the topic a very broad, they tend to avoid it or just say a very little bit. And the result is that I have a lot of students coming into my college classes with almost nothing, just very, very little understanding of other people's faith traditions, which I just think is so sad. We live in such a diverse society. To me, learning about other people's religious beliefs is a baseline part of becoming a world citizen, becoming a responsible person in this world. So I guess I'm trying to do my part with my job. Because I'm at a community college, I teach the intro courses. I don't get to teach the sort of, specific stuff that I focused on in my dissertation, for example. I teach the intro to world religions classes, but I actually love that because I love getting to introduce my students to, these new traditions that they've never heard of before, or that they know, they've heard the name, but they know nothing about it. And I hope that I'm helping to make them better world citizens. So it helps me, even when I'm struggling with grading papers or, the parts of my job that I don't love as much, it helps me because I can keep in mind that I really think what I'm doing is important.
Wow, Anne, UVA undergrad, one of the highlights of my life was living on the lawn at UVA.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's an amazing place. Charlottesville is beautiful.
So your spiritual journey has taken quite a few unexpected turns. Could you walk us through some of the most pivotal moments that have led you to explore various religious paths?
Sure. Yeah, I actually, I sort of give this little talk about my journey on the last day of class every semester to my students. So I was just doing this last week when we wrapped up the semester. So I'll try to keep this relatively brief. It's a little bit of a long, winding story, but so I grew up in a Protestant church, like I said, and I was in that church for my whole childhood. And was very involved in, Sunday school and youth group and church choir and everything. And I got confirmed in that church when I was a teen. But by the time I was 18 and heading off to college, I had started to have more doubts and question things. I was searching. That's how I'd put it. I'd started to feel like there was something more out there for me. I remember I read an essay that one of my fellow students wrote my senior year of high school that, said something along the lines of, if there's n number of religions in the world, then n minus one of them must be wrong. And what does that mean for all those billions of people that are in the wrong? And that, that really got me thinking about the idea of exclusive truth. And, can I really be okay with saying that I have some truth that other people don't have, and that sort of thing? So anyway, when I was in my freshman year at UVA, I met a friend who became a very close friend that's a member of the Baha'i faith. I don't know if you're familiar with that at all. It's a relatively new religion, started in 19th century in Iran. And the basic idea in the Baha'i faith is that rather than there being many religions in the world, there's one religion that God has revealed through many prophets, including Moses, Jesus, Muhammad, the Krishna, Buddha, etc. So it sort of brings together the religions of the world under this one umbrella, including the Baha'i prophet Baha'u'llah. So anyway, I was very intrigued by that idea, this sort of like we're all one religious family idea. So I learned more about that tradition, and I went to some events with my friend, and I did convert to the Baha'i faith when I was 18 years old. And I was in that community for about 5 years till I was 23. And of course, that was a very pivotal time in my life. I was becoming an adult. I was sort of discovering who I was. And that community, it's again very warm and welcoming. I enjoyed being part of it. And that community is very focused on things like fighting against racism and interfaith collaboration and, gender equality and things like that. So it kind of got me started on, being concerned and thoughtful about those things, which has stuck with me. But when I was 23, I decided to leave the Baha'i faith, and I won't go into a lot of detail. It was very complicated at the time. When I joined, it was right for me, but when I left, it was also right for me. My beliefs had really started to shift at that point. I had realized that I didn't believe in God with a capital G, like it's described in many religions, including the Baha'i faith. So it just wasn't the right fit for me anymore for a lot of reasons. And then I moved to Arizona, which is where I did my PhD at Arizona State. And I made several close friends there who are Wiccan, members of like kind of neo-pagan communities. So I started going to some rituals with them, like full moon rituals. And there were things about that I really loved. I liked connecting with nature and celebrating the divine feminine. And I found the rituals really, beautiful. But again, it wasn't quite the right fit for me. It just never fully fit. So I never quite fully committed to that. And then I moved back here to Virginia to take the job at Nova Community College. And for a few years, I was kind of quote unquote spiritual, but not religious, as we might say. Obviously drawing from the religions in that I think and talk about them all day, every day. So I'm still thinking about religions a lot, but not following a particular path. And I honestly thought for a while that that's where things were going to sort of end up. A lot of religious studies professors are not religious. Or don't have a particular path. So I sort of thought that was the end of the road for me. But then a few years after I moved back here, I started going to some local houses of worship where I have a lot of students attend for the experience project I give them. All my students have to go to a local house of worship to attend a service of a faith tradition other than their own, to have an experience of another religion. And I had a lot of students go to Ekoji for the project. They still do. And so I went one Sunday, and I brought Joran, my husband, along with me, and we liked the service a lot. We just, it really resonated with us. And so we went back again, and I started doing more research about Shin Buddhism, and learning more and, talking to people at Ekoji. And we kept going back again and again. And finally we said, well, why don't we join the temple? I guess we're doing this now. And that was, 8 or 9 years ago at this point, I want to say. So, it's been wonderful for me to find this spiritual family and to really feel like I've found a place that's a good fit for me, in terms of my beliefs, but also in terms of, how I want to live my life and where I want to put my efforts in life.
That is an awesome story, Anne. And we really look forward to seeing the students at Temple. So if any of them are watching this interview, know that.
Yeah. They really appreciate Ekoji because, first of all, it's Buddhism, but some of it's in English, which is helpful for my students. But they really appreciate the fact that everyone is so welcoming, and everything is made clear to them, so there's no confusion. They understand what's happening because everything's explained to them. And there's always people willing to help them. Like if they want to participate in a shoko, there's always someone willing to help them do that. So they really appreciate how open and welcoming everybody is at Ekoji.
I'm happy to hear that. So, Anne, what aspects of Buddhism, in particular Jodo Shinshu Buddhism, resonate with you the most on a personal level?
So I would say in terms of Buddhism as a whole, it's definitely Buddhism's focus on the mind, and how our thoughts can be the source of many of our problems. Because I can really be my own worst enemy. I really can when it comes to negative thoughts and worries about things I can't control. Definitely the focus on the mind and on changing mental patterns as a way of bringing more peace. That really resonates with me. In terms of Jodo Shinshu specifically, it's the focus on gratitude and on interdependence. Acknowledging all the causes and conditions that have brought me to this exact moment in my life, and brought me all the good things that I have in my life. It really helps me get a better perspective on things, and not get stuck in the negative. We also tend to talk about death a lot in Jodo Shinshu, which, it sounds pessimistic on the surface, but I think it's really helped me to move past fears of aging and death and to come to terms with the realities that are facing me and my loved ones in the years to come. I think I can be happier and more grateful in my life because I'm not afraid to think about death and what that means. And, that I'm not in I think in our society, we just tend to sort of put aging and death over here and try to push it away from ourselves as much as we can. But we don't do that in Jodo Shinshu. And I really think that that's a better way to live. I really do. I think you can't, that's what Siddhartha learned. You can't ignore suffering. You can't ignore death. You can't bury your head in the sand and pretend it's not out there, because it comes to everybody in our lives. Nobody, no matter how much wealth and privilege they have, no matter what they have, nobody can avoid aging. Nobody can avoid death. So it's important to confront it and think about what it means, and to be grateful for every moment that we have on this planet. I remember the first time that I went to Ekoji, actually, I started to do some reading online about Jodo Shinshu, about Shin Buddhism. And actually, I can't remember what specific website I visited, but just reading about the teachings of Shin Buddhism, I felt like so much of it resonated with me that it just felt like coming home to me. Joining the temple, joining Shin Buddhism, it just felt like it just fit so perfectly in a way that nothing ever had for me before.
So you've been involved in all kinds of capacities at Ekoji. How has volunteering and engaging with the community enriched your spiritual life and your practice?
Yeah. So yeah, over the years, I've been an Abon volunteer. I've been a Dharma school teacher. I've been a member of the music committee and singing in the temple. I've been leading, various kind of educational programs, like helping to organize lectures, etc. I've led the Buddhism discussion group, which is now the Buddhism movie discussion group that we have every month. And recently I started also helping with the technical stuff behind the scenes, helping to run the Zoom for the live stream services. So obviously that's given me an opportunity to interact closely with a lot of folks from the temple, which is so enriching for me. And especially my work with the educational committee and, the lectures and the discussion groups have helped me to deepen my understanding of Buddhist teachings, and to grow spiritually. But honestly, what it's mostly done for me is help me to appreciate everything that goes into running a temple, all the work that is involved in supporting a spiritual community. I'm so incredibly appreciative of people like Andrea who do so much for our temple, because we just wouldn't have all the good things that we have without all the hard work that's involved. So it's really given me the perspective on that, I think.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Anne. Can you share a particularly meaningful experience or lesson that you've learned through your involvement with Ekoji and the Sangha?
Sure. So one thing that comes to mind, in my first few years at Ekoji, I took a workshop led by Mark Lawal about the practice of Nikon, which is a form of self-reflection or therapy that it started in Japan in Jodo Shinshu in the 1940s, I think. And it's focused on gratitude and on kind of regular self-reflection to help increase gratitude. So the Nikon practice encourages individuals to regularly reflect on three basic questions. What have I received? What have I given? And what troubles have I caused? So you can sort of do that generally about your day, or you can do it about a specific person or a specific, facet of your life. So it's really applicable to a wide variety of things that that's part of your daily life. And in the workshop, Mark actually encouraged us to break down the "what have I received" part into even just super small things, everyday things that you normally take for granted. Like, I woke up today in a house that's over my head in a bed, and there's food in my fridge that I can eat, and my body works. I can see and hear and walk. And my appliances are still running and are keeping things running smoothly in my life. It's amazing when you really start to think about it, how many things you have to be grateful for, obviously the big things like family and friends and that sort of stuff, but just the everyday little things that, again, it's so easy to take for granted that, my lungs work and I can breathe, and, my legs work and I can walk. It's so easy to just take that for granted. And yet there are people that can't take that for granted, right? So it's such a great way to take a step back when you get stuck in some negative thing that you're going through. It's such a great way to just come back to simple gratitude for the good things that you have in your life. It's something that has really stuck with me. And I think about it, kind of on a regular basis, how much there is to be grateful for in life.
So I also took Mark's workshop and remember that being a really profound experience as well. So I just want to mention to anyone who's interested in learning more about Nikon at the EBL conference, which will be hosted at Ekoji in October, we're going to have a Nikon workshop.
Ooh.
So there will be an opportunity to engage with that practice and learn more about its benefit. So thank
Excellent.
you very much.
Excellent.
Great.
And of course, Anne, you're the second of our interviewees to mention Nikon. In our very first interview, Michael Huff talked about the impact that Nikon had had on his thinking and appreciation as well. So speaking about gratitude and appreciation, you're a mother. How has being a mother influenced your participation in temple activities and your understanding and appreciation of Buddhist teachings?
So it's definitely affected my participation, just in the sense that I have a small child now, so I'm not able to go to service physically as much as I used to, and participate in activities as much as I used to, just because of the responsibilities of parenting and having a little one that can't sit through service yet. So I've had to be more creative about finding everyday ways to be involved with the temple and to engage with Buddhism in my daily life, and maintain my faith practice. So it's made me be more kind of thoughtful about my time and how I can engage with Buddhism. but it's also certainly helped me to deepen my understanding of Buddhist teachings, just because parenting offers constant lessons in humility and in our human limitations and weaknesses. Nothing will teach you about yourself and your personal failings like parenting. It's so hard. It's the hardest thing I've ever done in my life by far. And it's just a constant source of the Dharma in everyday life, right? She's my biggest teacher. My daughter is my biggest teacher for sure. And she helps me to celebrate everyday life, but also helps me to think about even like my ego and how that, how that hinders me, expectations. When we have a kid, it's so easy to put our expectations on them. I want you to act this way. I want you to be this way. I want you to like these things or to do this. And that's so harmful to us and to the child. So I have to be really, really thoughtful about expectations. When we talk about the noble truth, desire, right? It's not just wanting things that you don't have, it's expectations that causes a lot of our suffering, putting expectations on things that ultimately might go unfulfilled. That really is such a cause of suffering in the world. And parenting really, really makes me think about that profoundly.
Thank you.
Yeah, excellent points. So what, Anne, would you say are the most important aspects of Buddhism that can resonate with people of various faith traditions,
Mm,
for those who identify more as spiritual but not religious per se?
yeah. So, because of my work with my students, I do get to really see this firsthand on a regular basis, because every semester I teach multiple classes about Buddhism. The Religions of the East course is the one that I teach the most. So I teach about Buddhism a lot. And what I'd say first and foremost is that it just makes sense to people. If that's one way to put it. When I teach my students about the central Buddhist teachings, the middle way, impermanence, the Four Noble Truths, the Noble Eightfold Path, it just intuitively makes sense to them, and they can see the value of it regardless of their own religious background or faith commitments or what have you. They can see how it makes sense and it might be helpful to people. The idea that you should work toward moderation in all things. The idea that we cause a lot of our own suffering through constantly craving things that we don't have or wanting good things that we used to have, and we can't accept change that's happening in our lives. The idea that hanging on to bitterness or hatred from someone that's harmed you will ultimately cause you more pain and suffering. These are concepts that I think are easy to grasp for my students, and that can be helpful for anyone, no matter what their faith background is. They're just, kind of concepts that make sense to people. And of course, in addition, meditation is something that's certainly beneficial for everyone. There are many non-Buddhists who meditate regularly and really feel that it's essential for their well-being. I have a lot of students tell me, when we talk about meditation in the context of Buddhism, I have many students tell me that they meditate regularly. Even students that are, deeply committed to another faith tradition, that's something that they bring into their lives because they feel it's really valuable.
And as we look at today's newspaper, we see examples of conflict between religions around the world. In what ways do you see Buddhism contributing to interfaith understanding and cooperation in our local lives and our global awareness?
Sure. So I think one really valuable thing that Buddhism brings to interfaith work is a focus on interdependence and an understanding of just how truly connected we all are. Because that seems to me to be a really important basis for any type of interfaith work. If we can start by acknowledging our common humanity and the fact that we are all waves in one ocean, I think that's a really good starting point for being able to try to understand each other and to work together to seek solutions, peaceful and compassionate solutions to the many problems that we face in the world. So I do think that Buddhism really has a unique perspective to bring, in the sense that idea of interdependence, and causes and conditions, that's so important in Buddhism, and it's the basis for a lot of the moral teachings and understandings in Buddhism. I think that's incredibly valuable to interfaith work, and something that Buddhists really bring to the table.
Thank you.
Can you share some practical ways in which you integrate Buddhist principles or practices into your everyday life as a parent and an educator?
So sometimes it's just honestly something very small, like reciting the Nembutsu quietly to myself anytime I encounter something very sad or something very beautiful. For me, that's just a very simple, everyday way of bringing gratitude back. It's, bringing my focus back to gratitude, whether it's gratitude for something that other people are experiencing that I'm not, or whether it's gratitude for something beautiful and amazing that I'm able to be part of. And over time, it's become, I would say, somewhat second nature to do that. So that's really helpful, because it's just, like I said, like flipping a little switch in my brain at various points throughout the week or what have you. So that's one thing. I would say Nikon, which I talked about earlier, again, just bringing the focus back to gratitude. That's really helpful for me in my everyday life. Just regularly trying to reflect on all the blessings, everything I'm receiving, but then also on my interactions with others. How am I, what am I giving to others, and in what ways might I be causing suffering or harm to others, and how can I sort of course correct on that? So Nikon's really helpful in my daily life as well. And when I just sort of in general, when I get stuck on negative thoughts or harmful self-talk, which unfortunately I do quite often. It's very it's something that happens to me a lot. But I just try to take a step back and be thoughtful about, and try to question those thoughts. Where are those thoughts coming from? What is is the source of harm real or imagined? What's going on there? Trying to come back to, again, gratitude, but also compassion, including self-compassion. So just kind of taking little moments here and there to come back to Buddhist teachings, and to reflect on my perspective on things. Also parenting, of course, like I said, is a constant source of lessons and opportunities to reflect on Buddhist teachings. And I'll also say small children are excellent at being in the moment. For my daughter, there is no other moment than this exact moment. She truly is in the moment at every time. And so that helps me be more in the moment. We go outside and take a walk, and she's so excited to pick up a rock. And that helps me to just be there with her and enjoy the small wonders of life, the everyday moments of joy, and try to not think about work I have coming up or something that happened yesterday and what I did wrong. And, it really helps me, I think, to be more in the moment. So that's another thing, parenting in general.
Bodhisattvas can come in small packages.
They absolutely can. They absolutely can. Yeah.
And is there a specific Buddhist text, book, or author that holds particular significance for you? And if so, could you share it with our audience and explain its impact on your spiritual journey?
Sure. So in terms of Buddhism overall, I really love the Dhammapada, a collection of the Buddhist teachings. It's such an important and profound foundational Buddhist text. There's so much wisdom in that, and it's a very short text, and there's so much wisdom in there. And I also have my students read a couple of chapters from it every semester. And we have amazing conversations just about those chapters and the many insights that they pull out. Again, coming back to that focus on the mind and how your mind can be your own worst enemy. You know, the mind can do more damage than any other person can do damage to you. And harboring negative thoughts ultimately leads to, you know, kind of self-destructiveness and harming yourself. But trying to move past or let go of those negative thoughts can bring greater peace in one's life. So the Dhammapada definitely, in an overall sense, is a favorite. But in terms of Jodo Shinshu specifically, one of the very first books I read after I started doing more research about Shin Buddhism was Buddhism of the Heart by Jeff Wilson. That's a really great book that I recommend to everybody. It's full of great lessons, and it really helped me confirm that that Jodo Shinshu is the right Buddhist path for me. You know, it's very accessible. Jeff Wilson's writings in general are very accessible, but that book in particular is a great introductory Shin Buddhist text, I'd say. You know, it covers a lot of the basic Shin Buddhist concepts, but in a way that's extremely relatable for anyone.
Two excellent suggestions. Thank you so much. So what message or insight would you like to share with our audience, especially those who may be embarking on their own spiritual quest or seeking a deeper understanding?
So I'm a teacher and a lifelong learner. So I guess, you know, the basic message is keep learning, keep seeking. You're never too old to embark on a new educational quest. It's never too late to start learning and to discover new things about this world and about yourself. And of course, there's a wealth of information online and in books and that sort of thing. But also look to other people as sources of wisdom. I've learned so much through my conversations with other members of Ekoji, whether it's through the Dharma discussions after service or, you know, kind of more formal discussion groups, or just, of course, like informal conversations that I've had with folks at various temple events. And I will take a moment here to make a plug for our movie discussion group. We meet once a month on Zoom to discuss a movie that either has specific Buddhist themes or just that introduces kind of moral quandaries or moral challenges that we can reflect on from a Buddhist perspective, you know, so kind of applying Buddhist teachings to interesting moral questions. And we have some of the most profound, amazing conversations in that group. I come away with new insight every single month. So I'll put in a little plug for that group for anyone that's interested. We are a very open and welcoming group. No previous experience required.
Thanks, Ann. Thanks for mentioning the discussion group, and thanks for mentioning Jeff Wilson. I just reached over, and at the very top of my book pile is his latest book.
Oh, yeah.
And it is so approachable, so digestible for those of us who are lay Buddhists.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so we're coming to the end. I wish we weren't. I wish we could go on and on. But the last question that we always ask members of the Ekoji Sangha is, at this point in your life, what does Ekoji mean to you?
So for me, that comes down to the language of the Vandana Tisarana, the refuges, right? So, you know, the first two, the Buddha and the Dharma, you know, it's a place to be to seek answers to questions and to learn about the Dharma, to learn about the Buddhist teachings and to explore them more deeply, and to work toward becoming a more compassionate and peaceful and happy person. So it's, you know, so it's exposure to the Dharma. But it's also an extended family. You know, the Sangha itself is a refuge. It's a place where I can find support when I'm struggling with little things or big things in my life. When I was pregnant with my daughter, the community really supported me, and even gave me a baby shower, and kind of rallied around our family. So that's really meaningful to me, being part of that extended family. I love the Ekoji community, and it's so valuable in my life. And now that my daughter has started attending Dharma school classes, it's like introducing it to that next generation and helping get her started on her spiritual journey, whatever that will look like for her. But getting to bring her into that and introduce her to Buddhist teachings as well has just been really wonderful in the last year. So I'm just very, very appreciative of this community.
Thank you.
If you enjoyed this episode, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can also connect with us on Facebook and Instagram. For additional resources, visit ekoji.org, BuddhistChurchesofAmerica.org, and explore Buddhist Temples of Canada at bcc.ca. Whether you're a dedicated scholar, a curious layperson, or simply interested in Buddhism's growing presence in America, you'll discover a diverse array of materials from Buddhist text translations to engaging comic books for children at bdkamerica.org. Here at Ekoji, our mission is to foster global unity within the Sangha through our in-person gatherings and streaming services. A special thank you to Dr. Ann Stegner for her valuable insights. I'm Andrea Chapman, joined by Joe Gochi, and we sincerely appreciate your ongoing support and encouragement. Namo Amida Butsu.